Well, you had to not be listening or watching to not agree that Republican vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin was very impressive last night. But let's get more of the details of what she said or what she didn't say, how it all plays out. I want to get both sides on the story, and to do that, we're joined by Democratic pollster and strategist Bernard Whitman and his Republican counterpart, Chris Wilson. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us there from St. Paul. And let me give you a free one here and start with you, Chris. Your impressions. How did she do last night?
You know, what she needed to accomplish was done. She really hit the ball out of the park, and we went from someone who was being questioned by a lot of the national media, a lot of the national pundit class, a lot of the Georgetown elite, to somebody who now is seen as a rising star and will be a home run pick. And I think what it did is it sort of verified the McCain process and going through and arriving at her as a vice presidential candidate. And it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays over the next couple of months. But from this standpoint, she did exactly what she needed to do last night. She energized the crowd. She energized the base. And I think she was able to show to women everywhere that she does represent what they want to see in an elected official.
Bernard, was he watching the same speech you were?
Well, I would take somewhat of a different issue with this. I think that she did a good job of introducing herself and her family to the American people, but I think that quite soon after that, she took the low road and began engaging in a series of negative personal attacks against Barack Obama, more of the same type of negative politics that we've seen for the last 8 years. And I think that given the tremendous number of issues we've got to deal with in this country, from the economy to healthcare to Iraq to terrorism to the housing crisis, it's unfortunate that from the Republicans we have heard almost nothing substantive, and instead they have engaged in the politics of personal destruction. I think the American people are tired of that.
All right, well, let's listen to it. She did get in some digs on Barack Obama last night. Barack Obama with his history of community organization. Take a listen.
I guess a small-town mayor is sort of like a community organizer, except that you have actual responsibilities.
Chris Wilson, you know, that was one of the things that, you know, people point out, but this was really good speech writing, wasn't it? I mean, this wasn't the issues. You know, it's a brilliant twist of phrase, but what does it mean?
Well, I think what it means is we did see her lay out what she wants to accomplish as vice president. We saw the differences laid out between her and Obama. And if we want to talk about, I mean, just to go to what Bernard sort of discussed in terms of who a person was talking about or what her overall points were or whether or not she made too much of an issue of the Democrats, at the end of the day, we really had a person, a candidate, who did a much better job of detailing differences between the Republican ticket and the Democrat ticket, the experience that existed, and Democrats overplayed their hand. They went far too negative against her. They tried to make an issue out of her experience, and what she did is laid out point by point how her experience as an executive was far superior to that as a Democrat ticket.
Yeah, Bernard, let me ask you, are you worried about, really the Democrats worried about her experience, given the lack of experience for its own candidate, Barack Obama? Are you really more worried about what experience is she going to give Democrats out on the campaign trail? She's feisty.
You know, what I'm worried about is the fact that we haven't heard a single, I have not heard the word economy mentioned a single time here. And what worries me should worry the American people. The Republican Party and John McCain and Sarah Palin have absolutely no plan to get this economy moving again, to deal with the housing crisis, to deal with global warming. I mean, in Sarah Palin, we have someone who doesn't even believe that humans have anything to do with climate change. We have someone who believes that Iraq is some sort of a holy war that we're engaged in. We have someone who is one of their first acts as mayor tried to ban books from the public library. These are not mainstream American views, and I think the more we get to know Sarah Palin, I think we're going to understand that she is a very compelling figure. I think she's probably an excellent person and has achieved a great deal, but is someone who is out of touch with America and is on the extreme right.
Listen, she had a few choice words to the media, too. Take a listen.
Here's a little news flash for those reporters and commentators. I'm not going to Washington to seek their good opinion. I'm going to Washington to serve the people of this great country.
That sounds great. Chris Wilson sounds great, but you know what? The news media, not only is it not giving up, it shouldn't give up. This woman has all kinds of problems back at home, political problems. Was she interceding in state politics here on behalf of her sister, family affairs? There's a lot of questions that are still out there. And you know what? John McCain, 48 hours before this convention, John McCain was giving her the nod. This wasn't vetted properly.
I think that's been completely dismissed, both of those issues. I mean, she was vetted properly. That's sort of a myth that's been created, and it's unfortunate it continues
Trust
to be
me, Chris, they haven't been
untrue.
dismissed. Trust me.
No, it's just not true. And the other aspect of the Trooper Gate, this is a man who tasered his 11-year-old stepson, who threatened to kill her father. So, yes, she did try and intercede and stop the death threats against her father. I don't think any American family would have a problem with that. And I think any American family would say, yes, I would have done the same
yet
thing.
on this, do we? Really?
Well, I think they were pretty well detailed this morning in the Washington Post, and I think they have been brought out. But from a standpoint of what she wanted to accomplish and what she needed to do and what she believes in, I think, again, we've got a candidate here that did a great job last night, and the next 2 months will tell the difference as to whether or not she represents the American people. But I think she did a good job last night detailing her vision and talking about the economy, and she did mention it. Bernard and I don't think we're listening to the same speech. And she also went very hard into the issue of Islamic extremism and terrorism, and that's one thing we didn't hear the Democrats talk about once at their convention. And let's face it, that is going to be one of the top issues going into the fall, is protecting this country and making sure that we are safe.
Bernard, how about the whole question? I mean, are the Democrats going to be hands off on her? I know Barack Obama has said, you know, on the family, everybody hands off, but on her own records?
I think her record is absolutely fair game, and I think that the public and the media should ask questions, not about her personal life. I think that's entirely inappropriate. But who is Sarah Palin? I mean, she raised taxes in Alaska by $1.5 billion. Didn't mention that. She was for the bridge to nowhere before she was against it. Didn't mention that. She was for pork barrel spending and earmarks before she was against it. Didn't mention that. This is someone who puts her political interests far above the interest of individuals. And I think that the more we get to know Sarah Palin, we're going to find that out. But truthfully, we need to be paying attention to John McCain. He leads the top of this ticket. He's someone who clearly, by his own admission, doesn't know a whole lot about economics. And we haven't heard a single mention of how we're going to get this economy moving again. That's what troubles me as a Democrat, and I think that's what troubles the American people.
All right. Bernard Whitman, Chris Wilson, I want to thank you both for being with us and giving us two sides here on the Palin speech. A long way to go yet. Very impressive performance there. We'll see how John McCain does tonight. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.